mentioned over 250 broadcasters that you've worked with. Who's
Yeah.
one broadcaster that you haven't worked with but would want to?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I'd really have to think about, on the baseball side, I'd love to do a game with John Smoltz
Hmm.
because I've known Smoltzy for a long time. He was a young pitcher with the Atlanta Braves. My first job was with the Atlanta Braves. I was a young guy, and when they would bring up a pitcher like Smoltz, he was about the same age I was, if not a couple of years younger. Same with Tom Glavine. And I think he's developed into a phenomenal analyst. Tim McCarver was a guy I would have loved to have sat next to and picked his brain for 9 innings. I mean, I'm so fortunate because I've got two guys who are, in that Hall of Fame class as announcers, in my opinion. So I want for nothing in the booth these days. I've worked with, Jay Billis on hoops. I've worked with Doris Burke, who's incredible. Many, many games at Dickie V, who could not be a better human being. So I've been really, really lucky in that respect. I'll tell you, I'd answer this another way, though. A guy that I would love to have one more shot at, just one more game. He's no longer with us. He was a former partner of mine. And his name was Rick Majerus, who was a former basketball coach at Utah and also at St. Louis. And we were partnered together for 2 years. Very, very interesting man. Brilliant, brilliant basketball coach. And if I had another opportunity, to work a game with Rick, I would just tell him how much I enjoyed that first go around and how much basketball he taught me.
Who was one favorite teacher or professor you had growing up?
Well, honestly, I think the best teachers for me have really been broadcasters. But there was a gentleman I worked with when I was 17 years old in New Hampshire, a little radio station, Keene, New Hampshire, WKNE. And that's the first paying broadcast job I got. I was only 17 years old. And they really took a chance at me. And I did late nights and overnights. They put me in a safe place where not many people could hear me. But I remember him telling me once, his name was Howard Corday, he was our program director. And I remember Howard pulling me aside once and saying, you've got a real sportsy sound. You better make sure that your career is in sports because that's where you belong. You sound sportsy. And he meant that as a real compliment, because he was a huge sports lover. He wanted to be a sports announcer. His career took him elsewhere. But that was probably one of the most important things a teacher ever told me or ever taught me. I mean, I had some great professors at Syracuse, but I really look to other broadcasters as great counsel for me.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is announcers who give up on the game too early, who will tell you in so many words, this is over. In other words, don't even bother to watch. This isn't even worth your time. And that has always rankled me. And occasionally I'll work with a partner, not the guys I work with on the Red Sox, but maybe a basketball game, and it's gotten to 17 points and only 4 minutes to go. And their tone, anyway, would lead the viewer to believe, hey, I'm going to go find something better to do. And I always think that's dangerous because I've called so many games in different sports that we thought were done, that this is going to be your final result. And it didn't end up that way, not even close. And, if you kiss a game off before it's really had time to be a final, I think you're doing your viewers a real disservice. So I try not to do that. And if I find myself going that way, there's a voice inside my head saying, don't do it.
What's your biggest fear?
In the booth?
Sure, yeah.
My biggest fear is I guess probably that I will make some basic mistake, like give the wrong score or give a guy an RBI or a home run who didn't hit it. It was our third baseman, not our shortstop. I think those are the things that drive every announcer. You know, you're trying to be technically perfect. It's really hard to do. Even Scully couldn't pull it off every day of his life, and believe me, he'd be the first one to tell you that. But you keep coming back and trying to be perfect. But that's it. You know, you're working on that every day. You want to make sure someone tuning into the game, either TV or on radio, you know, they may not have been with you for the last hour and a half. So they need an accurate accounting, and they need it quickly. They need it efficiently to get caught up so that they're comfortably in the lane for the rest of the day or however long they're going to watch or listen.
What is your go-to ice cream topping?
For me, that would be whipped cream. Yeah, I'm not a nuts guy. So, I mean, I'll do sprinkles on occasion, you know, but usually it's just the whipped cream, obviously chocolate sauce underneath there. I mean, clearly, but you know, the whipped cream, that's the topping for me. Nothing too crazy, too fancy, but you know, delicious nonetheless.
Vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream?
I'm a big chocolate ice cream guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm vanilla. Yeah. I'm vanilla.
Hey, you know, to each his own, and you know, people would look at us and go, "Oh, that's boring." You know, no, it's not. Right. It's all American is what it is. You know.
So I know we started this Vin Scully impression. Do you have any other hidden talent that Dave O'Brien might have that no one might know about?
Yeah, I think so. And people have told me that there was a long period of time where I thought I was going to be a sports writer because I can write. I like to think that I can write and put a couple of sentences together. In fact, my youngest daughter, for a Christmas gift last year, got me a typewriter, an old-fashioned Smith & Corona typewriter. God only knows where she found it, but it's exactly like the one I used when I was a student at Syracuse. A little idea how old I am. So we were still using typewriters back in the day. I'm still trying to find out where I'm supposed to get a ribbon for this thing, but I used to write like crazy on that thing, and I keep a journal. You know, I keep a daily journal and write a lot. My wife thinks I should be writing a book right now, which might not be a bad idea. I don't know who would read it, but that's every author's nightmare, I guess. But we live right down the street from one of the greatest authors in America today, Dan Brown, here in Ryan, New Hampshire. Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code and all that. He's one of our neighbors. Now, he can flat write. I think the rest of us are just pretending, but I pretend okay.